So to kind of wrap up this discussion on socialism, we've talked about lots of possibilities and maybe where it needs to go and things. And so, at this point, especially looking at climate change and all, I'm sure a lot of folks start to ask, is it even possible? Can we even get there? Are we even going in the right direction? Is this even a thing? And I think there's a couple of answers to that. One, in the very beginning, our first slide, we talked about kind of the history that humanity has been around for, technically hundreds of thousands of years. Capitalism has existed for 500 years at most, right? And certainly not in the form that we're experiencing today. And so all of the things that we associate with human nature and human behavior today are really, folks' responses to living under an oppressive capitalist regime. They're not necessarily what I would call human nature in the sense of the way humans would act, if we lived in a better society that promoted the good of humanity as opposed to the worst of humanity. And we see this, and that's not just like a theoretical conversation. We see this actually from science, that folks that study evolution have pointed out, and Kropotkin has the book Mutual Aid: A Factor in Evolution, which is a good book to read on this, but he's not the only one that commented on it, that throughout not just human history, but even other species, throughout the existence of life on this planet, mutualism and cooperation, mutual aid, working together in social groups has always been a thing that evolution has favored. And certainly in humans, we're a very social species. So I think it's important to keep in mind that even when you feel negative about greed and corruption and things like that, that's stress responses to living under a capitalist society. That's not how people actually want to act if they had the time and the rest and weren't starving and things like that, right? and so capitalism, when you come down to it, it's new. It's not inevitable. It's not human nature. We can do something different because humans have, through most of history, lived differently. And by working together and organizing together, we can create a different type of society than capitalism. And that kind of leads into the second point here, that we should also think of socialism not as an end goal, that like we create a socialist society and we're done. It's actually an ongoing process, and it's probably like a forever ongoing process, because there will always be challenges that we face, and hopefully not as big and severe as climate change, but there will always be things that we have to adapt to, and there will always be goals. When we get back to that question about what do you want to do with your life, what does it mean to live, there will always be challenges that we want to face. And so society should always evolve with those, with our interests and our goals and the challenges that we face. So it's also important to think that socialism is not an end goal, but a process of always continually improving ourselves and improving society. So, we should always, regardless, be fighting for a better society. And whenever we could take a step forward, that in some sense is socialism. Whenever we take a step forward, even if it's not everything we wanted, just keep marching, keep trying to do better.
Yeah, this is another one of the areas where it's why I'm a Marxist. I don't believe in a peace, love, and happiness at the end of the tunnel. As long as there's two of us, we're going to have disagreements and we're going to work through them. In best case scenario, and we beat all the odds and we survive, in a few billion years, we're going to have to figure out what to do when we don't have a home anymore. When the sun expands and either swallows us up or burns us up, we're going to have to evolve. And so, like Garrett said, the fight for socialism isn't something with a finite end point. But we live in a dynamic, in a dynamic world, in a dynamic environment, and dynamic ecosystems. And because of that the dynamic nature of our entire world and our entire existence, we have to be able to be constantly flexible. And we have to, and like we've talked about, right? At no point in this, workshop on socialism have we provided a blueprint. And because of that, we have to be able to weather, you know, when we take that step forward, like Garrett says, sometimes a step back will come later, or sometimes our step forward will blow up in our face, right? Or an unforeseen consequence. One example of unforeseen consequences I always use is Obama's Cash for Clunkers program.
Mm.
I think that I think that the policy goal was admirable to get more environmentally destructive vehicles off of the road. I don't think it was thought through about what that would do to car prices, to the used car market, right? So we got some cars off the road, but we bricked them all, right? They weren't that we removed them from circulation, and that meant the price of buying a used car skyrocketed, and we're seeing the price of buying a car skyrocketing again now. But there was a huge jump in the used car market as a direct result of Cash for Clunkers, right? So it was a program with ecology as its one of its core things. Plus, they wanted to sell some more new cars. That was clearly part of it. But the environmental goals ended up having a negative economic impact for the working class.
Yeah. So when it comes to a socialist society, I think it's important to keep these things in mind, that it's not an end goal, it's a process, and it's always worth fighting. It's always worth fighting for a better life and a better society. And humans are not incapable of it. Well, it's if there is such a thing as human nature, socialism is more like our human nature. We like to cooperate and work together, even though there's disagreements sometimes, but people don't generally like to fight with each other.